Hello and welcome to the 28th edition of the Jaguar Report podcast. My name is Gus Logue. I'm joined by my co-host John Shipley. John, the Jaguars are AFC South champions after beating the rival Texans 20-16 after I laughed in your face in the last podcast about your accurate, perfect score prediction. So, how are you feeling?
For the record, I knew Josh Dobbs was not scoring 20 points. It didn't matter what defense you're putting out there. Okay, yeah, there are moments where that touchdown pass he threw was pretty nice, where I was like, okay, dang, Josh Dobbs is actually looking semi-competent. But once they stopped doing like all play action and throwing like outs and like 5-yard passes, basically, once he had to actually push the ball downfield, like that Tyson Campbell interception was one of the worst deep balls I've ever seen a starting quarterback.
Oh yeah,
I saw some people like say that like Tyson was like beat on that play or something, but if you watch it, it's literally he's running with the receiver and he can tell as soon as the ball is out of Dobbs' hands. And he said this after the game that because he was reading the quarterback that the ball was going to be underthrown, so he could basically just stop and catch it like a center fielder. It was I did not expect the offense to kind of not score as many points as it did, but I feel good being one of the chosen few to know that Josh Dobbs is not going to score many points in an NFL game.
Yeah, well, congrats on that.
Thank you.
I mean, we'll get to the offense and like breakdowns later, but they were just kind of same old story. I felt like of like old Jags almost of like kind of shooting themselves in the foot in a couple of key spots. But
sorry about that beep. Every time I'm right about something, it goes off.
You don't have to apologize for being wrong or right. Never apologize.
Only time it'll happen this show.
All right. Well, I mean, the play of the game was obviously the Rayshon Jenkins blitz strip sack, Josh Allen in coverage, of course, bringing it back for a touchdown. Personally, my favorite part of the play was when our guy Arden Key was just jumping up in midair before Rayshon even made contact and stripped the ball with like a huge grin on his face, and then he almost got in the way of Josh Allen on the return. So that kind of made it even better.
He's the best. Man, he's the best. Like, like not to be disrespectful. Everybody in the NFL is good, but he's like like the energy of Jahad Ward last year, but like actually good. Actually good.
He's like I feel like it's gone like Fournette and then Ward and then Key in terms of kind of like characters, but the first two were kind of like. I mean, they're all goofy on the field in their own way.
My favorite thing about recent Jaguars games is watching Arden Key do like a Rob Van Dam 5-star frog splash onto like a tackling pile. He's like coming from absolutely nowhere. Like the jump adds nothing to the play, but jumping on top of it regardless.
Yeah, right. It feels like he just like jumps and kind of like does stuff at random. And I'm like, there's definitely times when he has a plan, and it's clear when you get 9 pressures on 20 snaps that like you're doing something right, but like it just looks so funny sometimes.
That's an absolutely unreal, pressure rate. I think they said next gen stats. Shout out to our boy Keegan. What was it like? You said 9 pressures on 20 rushes. I think it was the best since like week 16 in 2018. So it's like better than like any Nick Bosa or Micah Parsons pressure rate going out there.
Basically like the best single game performance in terms of pressure rate in the past several years. So pretty good. I'd say that was like my biggest general takeaway because I was up in the nosebleeds for the game, and then I've got plenty of offensive takes, but I didn't get the chance to watch the defensive film. And so my biggest takeaway was just basically the defensive line dominated and won the game. And so Arden Key was a part of that, but what takeaways did you have from watching the defense?
Yeah, no, Arden Key, obviously a huge part of that. He's somebody who had to really, step up with the loss of DeJuan Smoot because he was always, kind of in that, third pass rusher role. But now that you lose one of your top rushers, you really need that third guy to step up. And, he's done that the last couple of games. But I think other than that, I mean, you go up and down the list on the front 7, and it's like hard – not to consider each of the guys playing the best football they've played all year, which, if you're going to make an impact in the playoffs, it's going to be, making plays as a pass rusher. I mean, we see it time and time again. The teams that are able to get to the quarterback in January and February win these important games, and that's how I think Saturday against the Chargers is going to go. And I think the Jaguars finished the season with like the third highest pressure rate or something along those lines. But I think it was the last couple of weeks have been, among the highest pressure rates that they've had in, years, even dating back to the Saxonville days. Now, of course, the Texans' offensive line in a season that they clearly kind of gave up in, and whatever the Tennessee Titans trotted out there last week. Not good offensive lines, but you're seeing the entire defensive front kind of, kick it into gear on another level, kind of player by player. Like Devon Hamilton, that play where Derrick Henry tried to throw it, and he just like grabbed Derrick Henry like a child and like started pushing him back and landed on him completely. Like, one, it was hilarious to see Henry was able to get the ball out, but two, it was just like an unreal play by Hamilton because, it looked like, if he did it on time, it was maybe there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Smoot point is honestly a good one just because that was arguably the Jaguars' best pass rusher in general, but definitely rotational guy-wise. So he was an important depth piece. And, he was great, but if anything, it seems like the pass rush has gotten better. And as you said, certainly part of that is with the offensive lines they've faced, but they also had career games, as you said. Every one of them was outstanding.
Yeah.
What do you see from Trayvon specifically?
Yeah, no, Trayvon's been somebody who, his injury came, I think, at the worst possible time for him because it came like literally the game when the Jaguars were like, okay, we're going to let you do what you do well. And he had like an incredible first half. And then the injury kind of completely, derailed him for a couple of weeks. He barely played against the Texans. I think he played like 25 snaps or something like that.
Yeah.
Seeing the game that he had, it really made me think that, I know this is a flawed point and that, evaluating a draft pick goes far beyond evaluating, how a player did in week 18 because you can look at Aiden Hutchinson's season, on paper and you would take his stats over Trayvon Walker's. But just in the context of the 2022 Jacksonville Jaguars, I thought Trayvon Walker had the kind of game where, Trent Baalke can kind of like be, like give the double bird to everybody and be like, I kind of knew like that play alone where, there were countless plays that he made a big impact in, Roy Robinson Harris's sack. That was all Trayvon Walker, beating the left tackle. He drew a hold on another would-be sack. He drew a hold on one of Henry's, big runs. He made several run stops where he just demolished the tight end, but that one play where he was able to stop Henry at the line of scrimmage and Henry stiff-armed him and he just brought him down to the line of scrimmage. It was like, Jesus, the Jaguars have been looking for the Derrick Henry, like, anecdote for it seems like a decade, and he's right there, And to get into the playoffs, you have to win your division. I firmly believe that, maybe it's an archaic point of view, but when you draft and when you build your team, it's with your division in mind because the easiest way to get into the playoffs and to go into a run is, to build for your division. And I think, we saw kind of a case of Walker doing that. I don't think they win that game if they're starting Aiden Hutchinson or Kayvon Thibodeau because I don't think either one of them is able to create for the rest of the defense as much as he did in the pass rush game while at the same time having that strong edge in the running game because, that's what the Titans want to do. People see Derrick Henry and think, they just want to run, power in a halfback dive ball game. No, they want to get to the edges of the defense. They want to run at your defensive ends, and he kind of makes it impossible.
Yeah. You're definitely right about kind of planning for your division. There's plenty of former SEC greats. Damian Pierce, the list goes on. But no, and like the whole, like the Foley Fatukazi kind of like disappeared a little bit and Corey Peters emerged as like another playmaker. But you mentioned Roy Robertson Harris. Josh Allen's talking about career games, had probably the game of his life. What was the whole thing about like the sack not counting?
I think it's because Dobbs recovered the ball and was then tackled by somebody else. So I think it counted. I think so. So I think it counted as a tackle for loss by like Gotsis and Peters or something like that. So he hit him and forced a fumble, but since it technically wasn't a hit that brought him down, I guess it didn't count as a sack. But I'm I'm with you. I think like literally up and down the list. And Fatukasi, I think maybe it's a case of like, he played like a kind of surprising low amount of snaps. He's not on the injury report anymore, but he was last week. He was questionable for the game. Maybe it was a case of, he just wasn't quite 100%. And that's somewhere where they did have a lot of bodies because, you have Hamilton, you have Peters, you have Gotsis, you have Robertson Harris. You have enough guys you can rotate in. Corey Peters, man, that was one of the all-time Jaguars performances because it came out of completely nowhere.
The man with the graying beard. It was unbelievable. He was just like in the backfield at least 3 times on just huge plays late in the game too.
Yeah, no, the entire front, really played inspired football. And again, I know the Titans, it was mostly backup offensive line, but the Titans as a team, the way they play, they're going to try to impose their will on you. And the Jaguars front seven kind of did that for them. I mean, you mentioned Josh Allen. I've covered, Josh Allen's entire career. I started in 2009. He was drafted in 2019. You know what I mean? Shut up. He was drafted in 2019, and I've covered every single game of his career. That was the best regular season game I've seen him play, and that's counting the Buffalo Bills game, the Josh Allen game last year where he picked him off. Because to me, he was absolutely dominant this game as a pass rusher, as a run defender. From first play of the game was a tackle for loss from him. I mean, he just set the tone.
Yeah.
And obviously, the big touchdown score with, like you said, him coming in coverage was absolutely perfect. I don't want anybody to ever ask a why is Josh Allen in coverage question ever again. But I thought it was his best game ever. And the cool thing was it seemed like he was playing at his best when they needed him to. It wasn't like early in the game or anything. It was like on the most important drives of the game.
Yeah, I'd say that was kind of a big question mark earlier in the season and just throughout his career, honestly. It was like showing up in big games and kind of being able to produce by himself. And I mean, as we said, the whole front seven had a day. But I mean, another guy that had a day was Foye Oluokun. Now the NFL's leading tackler for a second straight season on 2 different teams, which, I mean, we talked about the leading tackles and him last week on last week's pod, but pretty dang impressive.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's another guy I had, when it comes to building your team for your division, he's another guy I immediately think of because he's a super physical linebacker in the middle. A friend of the pod, Eric Stoner, I'm not going to drop his comparison for Fourier, but it was a good one, and it was a Jaguars great at linebacker, and I'm not talking pause because it was a actual above average linebacker, but
God, shots fired. All right.
Yeah, no, I kid. Pause was fantastic, but no, regardless, I think that Fourier, you kind of saw like really what his game is. He's a hammer downhill. He's great underneath. If you want him, covering tight ends down the field, I mean that's where teams are going to attack the Jaguars in the playoffs. They're going to try to attack Fourier. They're going to try to attack Muma and Lloyd. They're going to try to maybe try to throw the safeties in the slot a little bit. The middle of the Jaguars defense, that's where teams are going to attack. So,
yeah.
And that's just something you have to take with him, but it's kind of give and take because he's such a plus in the run game that, when the Jaguars can make teams one-dimensional like they kind of did against the Titans and in situations like that in the game drive. I mean, that's the one thing about running backs where the nerds are right for once about the running back position is like those late game drives, like unless they're a pass catcher, you're like, okay, you're useless, like once they got to the 50, it was like, okay, Derrick Henry literally can't do anything anymore. So, besides that, I think he's,
Derrick Henry. Like he's the only one that usually does do that.
Yeah, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. I mean, That's fair enough, and I guess every situation is different. But that was like my immediate thought when the Titans got the ball last. It was like after Henry got like 2 carries, I was like, they can't give him the ball, the ball again, like their best player, and that's why I knew the Jaguars were going to win the game. And that's when the Jaguars defense is ultimately at its best, is when they can make you one-dimensional, because then they can pin their ears back and kind of get after the quarterback, which is definitely an obvious point, but it's a true point. Damn it.
I mean, I think that's part of what makes this one so impressive. It's just like the offense got off to a slow start. They only had 3 offensive drives in the first half. And so for the defense to not to let the Titans get too far ahead, I guess, but then also to put their foot down in the second half. I mean, as much as we've talked about how like the schedule's been a little bit weak, they have been super impressive in the Jags' second half season stretch in terms of kind of making adjustments and really shutting down opposing offenses in the latter half.
I mean, 22 points in 3 games. Like, I get it. You know, Zach Wilson, Davis Mills, Josh Dobbs, but 22 points in 3 games. Yeah, Chris Shrevely. Tattoo Tebow.
Right. So let's talk offensive takeaways. You want to lead it off, or should I?
You go ahead. I feel like you have an impassioned aura around you when it comes to this one.
All right. Well, the takes that I've seen and heard is that Trevor had a bad game, which, as the Trevor bad game apologist, I'm coming here to say it was not a bad game because he had. Okay, if we want to go drive by drive,
let's do it. Let's do it.
This drive, there was 2 Zay, like problems, and
that was a weird drive.
First and 10, that was like a catchable but tough. Like it was a tough ball on play action that Trevor zipped to him.
He should have caught
it. It was like right there.
He should have caught it.
He should have caught it. So it was a drop on first down. Then second down was just like a 0 or 1 yard run by ETN off the left side. And then it was like the little crosser to Zay on third down where he caught it and just tripped immediately.
As soon as he caught it, I thought it was a first down. And then
right.
I'm like, no.
From my spot in the nosebleeds, it was like so obvious. It was like as soon as he like got across the formation, it was like everyone could see he was wide open on the cross. But yeah, so the Jaguars had to punt after 2 Zay mistakes.
I do have a Zay anecdote before you continue.
All right, go ahead.
He made up for each of those mistakes in practice today. He threw the ball from the 30-yard line into like the end zone and a little bit off to it. They had those quarterback net things with the 3 things, and he threw the ball from the 30-yard line into the middle one, like on a dime, and just walked away like he didn't do anything at all. Like didn't be like, oh, that's cool, anything. Just did it and goes and walks away. It was a laser.
That's pretty sweet, but I don't know how throwing is going to help him catch the ball unless John Shipley is on the pod reporting that there's going to be a little silly special again.
I'm just saying if they ever needed him to throw the rock, it's there.
You think it's him?
Yeah, but go ahead. I'm sorry, I just had to. Okay. There's no other time to get that in. I caught like 2 passes.
So first drive, 2 Zay mistakes and a short ETN run forces a punt. The second drive, they were driving down the field really well, and then they had the silly special where it was like a botched fumble.
Shut up?
I'm sorry, I just saw that today, and I laughed out.
I hate that. I hate that. I hate you for bringing that in. It's really special. Shut the hell up.
All right, I'll drop that 2 times.
No, keep it. Keep the bit going. Keep the bit going.
I was gonna ask, like, would you say that the blame for that was definitely on one person? Like, I would assume it was on Trevor, but like,
I think
I tell who he was pitching it to.
I think it was on Trevor. I think it was just a bad pitch from him, which he pitches it poorly enough times in the season. Yeah. You want to just stop asking him to do it, but I think it was just a bad pitch.
Well, I feel like they feel like they have to get ETN outside sometimes.
It also, like, to me, like, I have no evidence for this being the case because you obviously should practice these plays a million times, and I'm sure they did, but one of your tallest players pitching at the, like your shortest player on the team. Like, it just seems like a weird, kind of like dynamic.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. Third drive. So we have Zay's fault, then Trevor's fault. Third drive was the Kirk 25-yard touchdown off play action. That was off another nice drive led by Trevor down the field. I'll drop some running stats later, but the Jags finished the game with 19 rushing yards, which was the 3rd lowest total in franchise history. So not a lot of running production. So
yeah,
those are the 3 first half drives. In the second half, there was a field goal that was because of that was the Zay miss, I'm pretty sure. It was another drive down the field, and then there was like 2 plays that was just like well covered by the Titans, I thought, and like not really anywhere to go. And then on third down, Trevor misses Zay. So that's 4 points off the board. Or just two red zone mistakes by Trevor. And then the next play, or next drive, he gets pressured 3 times in a row on 3 straight dropbacks to force a 3 and out. Or it was a 5 and out. And then I forget what happened the rest of the game because I only watched that once and not twice. But the point basically that I'm trying to make it going through the whole game it's like maybe like 3/8 of the drive is that like Trevor made the mistake on the lateral. He made the mistake for overthrowing Zay, and then he made the mistake of underthrowing Kirk on like kind of like the fade on the left side that could have been a touchdown on a 3rd down play where it was like a pick route, and that was later in the game.
Yeah, I think there was also the miss to Marvin, I'd say, on the right side.
Right. That was like a pretty tough throw, I thought, with pressure. So like,
sure.
I don't know if I would like say that's like a pure miss, to be honest. But like,
I mean, he started like 11 of 13, and that's like counting the Zay drops. So I'm like, you can't even like say he had a bad game because he had a good first half. Like, I get the pitch, but I also kind of put the pitch thing on Doug Peterson because like Doug Peterson to me is one of like the top like 6 or 7 play callers in the NFL. But you know, it's obvious he's an Andy Reid guy because Andy Reid does the same thing. Where he just like comes up with complete insane stuff at the worst time possible, and you're like, okay, this is a really cool play, and
right.
You know, like you appreciate it, but you're like, not right now though, and it felt like at the worst time possible because like Trevor was having a really good drive, like that was one of the offense's best drive of the night, and it was weird. It felt like the entire second half the offense was just out of click. Like I think you can probably attribute it to they got beat up front. And I think that's something that entering the playoffs, if you're going to ask me what's the biggest concern for the offense, I think it's that.
Yep. I was going
to. Because I think
it felt like Trevor got pressured on every single second half drop back, if I'm being honest.
And it was like interior pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like he's good. In my opinion, he's better against edge pressure because he can just, out athlete it and make plays on the run. Mm-hmm. Interior pressure just seems like it makes him like break all his like habits basically and do like everything he's not supposed to do.
I feel like interior pressure is just harder to face. Like you always hear about Brady, like, oh, he's like susceptible to interior pressure, but I feel like that's more of just like
any quarterback.
Any like great quarterback's weakness is just so that it's hard to get away. Because like especially for him with the athleticism, if an offensive tackle gets beat inside, then he just sprints outside of the pocket. And then if the tackle gets beat outside, then he just hitches up one step with those long freaking legs. And so like interior pressure, he kind of has to like spin around a little bit. We'll admit that was a weird I was just gonna move past it. I don't know why I said that.
No.
But anyway, he got pressured a lot. But like my point was that there was 2, maybe 3 misses on like downfield big plays. But like he was consistently driving the offense down the field. As I said, like there was not really any running game. They had a 20.
No, they were completely one-dimensional.
Yeah, 25% success rate and negative. Where's the stat? Negative 0.78 EPA loss per play, which is basically means like it was like a 0.7 point swing every single running play, which is a lot. Like most NFL running plays like are like negative 0.005 EPA, and so it was not good.
The longest carry was like 7 yards.
Yeah.
And that's, like I said, if you're entering the preseason, Jesus. If you're entering the postseason, that's the biggest thing. Like, yeah, I know. When they've gone against these teams with like physical fronts, especially physical interiors, the Washington game all the way back in week 1, the Eagles, I'd say even, the New York Giants game. And, you just go up and down the list. Yeah, those are some of the defensive lines that they've struggled with. And, there's a reason the running game, wasn't really going for a couple weeks there, after the Tennessee game. They were going against, good run defenses, and they weren't really able to move the defensive line. So I do think, moving forward, that's the biggest thing. And, like you said, there was a lot of pressure. There was, Lawrence even said in his press conference yesterday, like he was kind of asked, what was the difference in the first half and the second half, and he said, that a lot more like of his throws, there were miscommunications in his opinion because of, maybe some miscommunications from him or from the offensive line up front and pressure kind of impacting some of his throws. And you could see it. He was a lot more hurried in the second half than he was in the first half.
I don't have first half, second half splits, but I have pressure splits. He had 14 dropbacks under pressure, which is almost half of them, like a 40% clip basically. And on those 14 dropbacks, he had a sack and 5 completions for 44 yards and a touchdown, which was the Kirk touchdown. But those 44 yards was the third lowest yardage production of the season on using play action. And then they also only got 10 yards from screens. Did I mess up the play action? That pressure splits? No, I didn't. But anyway, the point, the numbers are too much as the number guy. But the point is, like, he was pressured a lot, and the screens and the play action didn't help a ton. And so I mixed up those two, so I'm just going to keep moving on. But Trevor didn't get a lot of help, and he was kind of like single-handedly driving the team down the field. And so the question is, like, whether he can kind of convert that Zay throw and convert that Kirk throw next time. But, like, I think Jaguars would have gotten, 100 yards total without Trevor. So that's why I think it's, more of, a fine performance. You hope to see better from him. More of, a straight-up, that was a bad Trevor game.
He was their best player on the field in the first half. I got, splits right here. He was 11 of 13 for 98 yards, and a touchdown, 8.9 yards a pop for 123.7 rating in the first half. And then in the second half, he's 9 for 19 for 114 yards, and let's see, a rating of 66.6. So, averaging 6 yards a pass instead of, what he was in the first half. And some of those biggest plays, like you said, came in the second half. So I think pressure had a lot to do with it. But, you also look at what the Jaguars running game did in the second half, and 7 carries for 3 yards. So I think that also has a ton to do with it.
Yeah. All right, well, the pressure stats is he was 5 for 13 for 35 yards under pressure and 15 for 19 for 177 yards and a score without pressure. So a lot of pressures and clearly a big deal.
And I will say, if you're the Jaguars, obviously the Chargers are a completely different team than they were in week 3. But I think the game plan from Doug is going to mostly be the same. That was one of those games where, Trevor put up big numbers, but outside of a couple broken, plays out of structure that he made, most the game plan, it seemed like, was quick game and, get the ball, the hell out of his hand quickly, to kind of neutralize Bosa and Mack. I would imagine that's the same plan, this weekend.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. For the same thing you said with Bosa coming back, he played, I think, 15 snaps in the week 3 game before he tore his groin. So with Bosa coming back and then, Kyle Van Noy has been just, unleashed on that defense for some reason. Apparently, he has a sack in 5 straight games, which is the longest active record, I think.
Do you remember when he was the next great linebacker prospect?
Well, it was just when everyone was all over the Patriots defense, hiring away their coaches, and then Trey Flowers to the Lions got a massive deal and did nothing in Detroit.
Do you remember? Do you remember him at college at all?
Oh no, I don't. I only remember him as Patriot and Dolphins.
He had his junior season or something had an insane bowl game. It was something multiple tackles for loss, sacks, an interception, a fumble recovery. It was absolutely crazy, and had everybody mocking him second or third overall. It was a Marquise Lee thing when Marquise Lee was getting mocked second overall the entire offseason before he actually played, and people were like, "No, this isn't right."
Yeah, they said, "Oh, okay."
Yeah,
they watched the games, didn't they?
They did. Other than the bowl game. Turns out the Honolulu Bowl is not the NFL.
So yeah.
Go Knights.
To mitigate pressure with the quick passes, with Van Noy kind of coming on and Bosa returning, and then the performance of the Jaguars offensive line last week, but then also with kind of the Staley/Fangio scheme of just kind of playing bend, don't break, let stuff in front of you, et cetera, would definitely expect a lot of quick passes.
You mentioned Kyle Van Noy before Khalil Mack.
Well, I think he's been more I feel like Mack this year has been good because he's Khalil Mack, but not old Khalil Mack either.
That's fair.
So. But yes, they do still have Khalil Mack. They do have Derwin James. It's a very talented roster. Any more defense versus offense takeaways? I mean, the only thing I was going to say was just strength of schedule one more time because, again, you're going from those quarterbacks to a top 3 quarterback in the league.
Yeah, no, I mean, the Jaguars, specifically versus their defense, like it's going to be basically a live chess match. Doug Peterson versus Brandon Staley. It's one of those cool games where, you don't always get where the head coach is the play caller. And if you do, a lot of times you'll get like they're both like the offensive play callers, but this time it's offense versus defense. So it's literally like Doug versus Staley purely when the Jaguars had the ball. Doug, again, the Chargers had a ton of guys injured in week 3. The Jaguars all week have said that game doesn't mean anything to him. Press Taylor today was like, that game felt like it was 3 years ago. Like, it's clear the Jaguars don't care about that game because, they lost like 5 games in a row right after that game. So I think they know they're not the team from them. But specifically talking about week 3, Doug kind of had Staley in a headlock. He was kind of stuffing him in a locker.
Yeah. I would say like the one other scheme thing I was going to mention is that the Jaguars ran a ton of heavy personnel and a lot of power and like gap rushes. So they had a lot of trap and duo from what I remember watching them. And like, I feel like they've definitely had a lot of pulling stuff, but not necessarily those 2 specific runs. So like, did Hasty have a big run or was it just James Robinson that game?
I think it was just James.
Well, James had a really big game, and so I'd say one of the storylines for
I think he had like 100 yards.
Yeah, whether like ETN is able to kind of like pick up that slack and able to take advantage of the same thing that Robinson was.
That's how long ago that game was. James Robinson had 100 yards rushing in it.
Yeah, that's a pretty long time ago.
Let me see. James Robinson, 17 carries for 100 yards and a touchdown with 50 yards on 1 carry.
I was going to say 16 for like 50.
ETN was like 13 for 45, and he didn't get more than 9. So ETN wasn't really a factor in that game. Like, I know the Chargers obviously strong on the edge with Bosa and Mack, but that's still where I kind of think they should like. It just seems like the running game is at its best when it's going sideways as opposed to going downhill. Like, they just don't have it downhill. Smash Mouth's running game right now. Like ETN can do some of like the pulling guard stuff. Like I think he actually does pretty well on trap. There's a few plays I want to say against Houston, not the touchdown, but a few plays with pulling guards where it looked like he had good patience, but it just seemed like getting him on the perimeter is the way to get him going. And I just feel like if you're gonna win, you got to do that. And to me, the key to this game is getting him in the run game going because no matter what metric you look at, the Chargers' run defense, it's bad. They don't have the personnel for it. Bosa is obviously a plus run defender, but they don't have any linebackers, any other defensive linemen who are plus run defenders. They kind of have a pass first built team. And then their scheme is to, kind of give you an easier shell to run at.
Yeah, I would say also, like, you want to, like, just, like, get the running game going because of the weakness of the opposing defense, but also just to help out the offense and the defense.
Exactly.
Because, we already mentioned how Trevor didn't really get help against Tennessee, but then they also only had 3 drives, as we mentioned, and their time of possession was the 3rd lowest of the season at 23 minutes and 48 seconds. And then they also had the 2nd lowest number of plays on the season with just 47 on offense. And so just like not only having 3 first half possessions would be pretty nice. And so the running game would go a long way towards that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Just the Titans kind of played like if the Titans didn't have Josh Dobbs at quarterback and actually didn't have like the Walking Dead of a roster and like had a full roster. The kind of game they played last week to me is how you win in the playoffs. Like just play keep away, like just limit possessions, keep getting first downs. I would go for literally like every 4th and short. Just keep getting first downs and taking away possessions because teams are when you limit the amount of possessions they get and the amount of time that they have with the ball. We kind of saw the Jaguars like. One mistake from the offense and kind of screwed. Like they only scored 7 points in the first half because they didn't get the ball the entire half. So the Jaguars at times have kind of shown the ability to be that team. They've had long drive like that drive against the Colts in week 6 when it was like a 10-minute drive. That was methodical. They've their entire philosophy is to be every kind of offense in one. So I think they've shown that they can do it, and that if you want to win, I think this is the game to do it. Like I know it's going to be tempting. The matchups will probably be there in the passing game to an extent, but I just think this is the week you got to take advantage of the running game. The Chargers they aren't built for it. They don't got that. They don't got that dog in them in the run game. They don't, man. They're soft. They're a soft run defense.
Yeah, I think they are too. I mean,
Morgan Fox. I mean, come on, that's a bit.
The game last week against the Broncos was not inspiring at all.
It was a weird, like, if you're gonna play your starters like before a playoff game, you would want to like build more momentum than that. Like that seems so deflating.
I like the Staley strategy seems so weird. It's like he didn't have a strategy. It was like, yeah, we're just gonna phase the starters during the game, like just based on vibes, I guess. Like I feel like it would have made way more sense if they said, okay, we're only gonna play our starters for the first half and then they're out. Or like the first 3 drives, I feel like a lot of coaches do, and then they're out. Maybe that's but
the Chargers are a franchise built on vibes,
and they're usually not great, but they're in the playoffs. So, you got anything else on that side of the ball before we switch?
No, I don't.
All right. Well, again, for the Week 3 game on the other side of the ball was definitely a toss out too, because Justin Herbert was about a week away from having cracked his ribs. And Keenan Allen, who I would probably vouch is the most important player on that offense, second to Herbert, obviously. He wasn't playing in the Week 3 matchup. So, I mean, guard Keenan Allen. Is it as simple as that? What are you looking for here?
It felt like they didn't try to get Austin Eckler involved at all in Week 3. Obviously the running game wasn't working. They didn't really try to run it, but it wasn't working when it did. But then they didn't even kind of throw him the ball. So I'd expect Austin Eckler against the Jaguars linebackers, to be a big matchup. And then obviously Keenan, I think the Jaguars match up well with the Chargers receivers on the outside. I think Tyson Campbell against Mike Williams. I don't know how often you want Darius Williams on Mike Williams just because of the size. The size.
Just never, not once.
Yeah. So I would imagine you have Tyson shadow Mike Williams.
Yeah.
If Palmer against Darius Williams. I like that matchup for Williams because I don't think Josh Palmer, he's not a bad receiver, but he's also not one who's going to particularly scare you. And
right.
I think Williams, he's kind of like a technician that he can kind of play with a guy like Palmer. So it's going to be Herndon in the safeties against Keenan Allen. And it's basically, what can Mike Caldwell draw up to limit Keenan Allen? Because again, the issue of the Jaguars defense is, the middle of the defense, like the pass defense. And that's exactly where Keenan Allen, kind of hits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they definitely got to kind of flood the middle of the field. I would agree with you that the outside matchups for Jacksonville are a plus, especially with Mike Williams being injured in the last game. Do you know if he practiced today? I don't know.
I'm not sure if he did, but I'm pretty sure he's playing.
Okay, well.
I'd bet the mortgage.
Yeah, I would expect him to play too, but it's possible he won't be at 100%. And in this matchup, the one thing I guess you might be able to expect to repeat is that shadow matchup, because that was the first really probably shadow matchup of Tyson's career, but definitely of this season, was against Mike Williams. And he allowed a 15-yard touchdown on just a 15-yard fade. That was a pretty beautiful pitch and catch, but that was before he figured out how to turn around and play the ball.
That was it felt like the last straw, because that was the last time I remember riding. He struggled to find the ball.
And every other play was he shut down Williams for the whole game.
He's really good against that style of receiver.
Right.
He's good against every style of receiver. But if you had to pick one for him, it's to me the bigger receivers, because they're not going to run by him. So he knows he can trust his speed and he can kind of play them a certain way.
Yeah, definitely.
Alec Pierce, he brutalized him
until Alec Pierce went inside and then he brutalized the Jags. So. Gotta stop Keenan. I'm a little bit nervous about Keenan.
I mean, do you project if you're the Jaguars? I'm imagining just the way they've played this year that their plan is to blitz the hell out of Herbert and try to get to him before he can hit Keenan. I mean, do you think they have the personnel to kind of do that?
No, not to hold up on the back end, because Josh Dobbs, when he tries to throw downfield, he throws a lollipop to Tyson Campbell, And when Justin Herbert throws downfield, it's like the definition of a rocket throw, like, or a rocket arm, whatever you want to call it. Probably the best throw I've seen this season, if not in my entire life, was from the Week 3 game when Herbert threw like a 60-yard in the air bomb, like split the two Jaguars safeties on a post. It was just like he was rolling out and just flicked his wrist. And so like, and honestly, like as great as his physical assets are, like his mental game is just as good, if not better. And so like, I think he's on like kind of like the list of like no blitz quarterbacks. So long story short, I don't trust the Jaguars secondary in general.
So do you think it'd be smarter for them to just rush 4 and kind of drop everybody else back?
Yeah, I think you kind of have to like hope like your D line continues to like carry your team, honestly, and like mix up some coverages, I guess, but like mostly just play like a lot of shallow zones, because like that, like the one thing is that like the Jaguars had a coaching advantage on the other side of the ball in Week 3 for sure with Peterson versus Staley, and like I feel like we both probably think that'll happen again. But on the other side of the ball, it's like Caldwell arguably has a coaching matchup or advantage as well, just because
Say his name.
Mike Caldwell.
No, the other guy.
I can't even. I was gonna try to avoid it because I can't think of it.
Joe Lombardi.
Joe Lombardi. Yeah.
And NFL royalty.
He runs like the horizontal spread scheme, even though he has the most physically talented quarterback in the league. Like, would be arguably the best if Mahomes wasn't in this era.
That's Vince's grandson, if you don't know. Nobody ever mentions it.
Well, I mean, it's Lombardi. It's a given. He has to be.
He got in the NFL completely on merit, though. It didn't have anything to do with that.
Oh, really? I was about to make a joke about how, like, it must have been because he knew someone. I mean, everyone knows his last name.
I'm kidding. I'm pretty sure he made it completely because of his
last name. Is that the Chargers' offensive scheme is, like, I wouldn't say terrible, but I would also say it holds Herbert back a little bit. And so I would say, like, play kind of like a more bend don't break and like
the plan like they have Kenny Pickett at quarterback.
I'd rather allow Herbert to be like a robot and like get through all of his reads and then check down Eckler and Eckler break a tackle for a 6-yard gain than like blitz and then have like someone burn Darius Williams on the outside.
My entire issue with the Chargers offense is like you have like this like pure like stallion of a quarterback who can make, you know, like every single throw, and they're running an offense like they have Kenny Pickett or Josh Dobbs or something like quarterback, you know. It's like completely safe, you know. And it doesn't help that they have probably one of the, like, I'd say them and the Colts are probably two of the slowest offenses.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, in defensive Lombardi, like it's not like they can really stretch the field that much on their own. So that's probably a part of it.
Fair enough.
Still, like, I don't know. He could get a little bit more help. So I would like play back and just not let Herbert go God mode on me, because I think like the key to victory is either like who wins the Peterson versus Staley chess matchup, unless like one of these quarterbacks just like announces that his arrival to the league as like an elite quarterback. Even though we both talk about them like they're in the tier, they are both making their first playoff appearance.
So you're a Lombardi fan.
What?
That's
a little bit. I'm just saying his receiver.
You said you like this scheme. I mean, when is it? Is all I'm asking. When is it?
When is what?
The Lombardi family reunion. I'm sure that I'm sure you're invited.
No, you know, Press is my long lost uncle.
Fair enough.
Don't worry, I got some trees somewhere for sure. Not like you though. You got a real coaching tree, even if it is in pro.
We're gonna at least double our wins next fall.
All right, nice.
From 1 to 2.
Oy vey. All right, what else is there to talk about? Should we do score predictions, or is there?
Oh yeah. Come on, hit me.
All right.
I'll show you mine if you show me yours. Come on, you go first.
Yes. 30.
Why'd your voice break?
I had to make it up on the spot. I hadn't predicted before, but I feel good about that one. 30-24 Jaguars. I think
30.
I feel a little bit more confident in Doug. Kind of like, I mean, one thing we didn't mention is like the Jags had a rest disadvantage against the Titans by like 4 days. because the Titans had Thursday night football and the Jags had Saturday night. But now the Jaguars have like a 1-day rest advantage, if that means anything, and home field advantage. So I think that, coupled with like I believe in Peterson a little bit more than Staley, I think, coupled with, I mean, I would say Herbert is better than Lawrence, but like I think either of them could just like go off and carry their team to victory. So 30.
Okay. I'm going to go 34-31 Jaguars.
Okay.
I think it'll be a shootout. Jaguars kind of pull it out late.
See, like, I see that, but I also see, like, I mean, as the Jags just showed and, like, the Chargers just showed both, like, last week, they're still both very capable of, like, doing stupid things. And so, I don't know.
What'd I say? What'd I say again? 34-31?
What do you say?
What'd I say? 34-31?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to hold myself to that.
All right. I don't know. It's just, like, two, like, new coaches-ish, new quarterbacks-ish.
I think Herbert's going to go crazy. Here's my thing. I think Herbert's going to go crazy, and then I think Doug Peterson's going to go crazy. That's not saying, like, I think Trevor Lawrence is going to have some kind of revolutionary game. I think, like, Doug Peterson, like, he's just going to press all the right buttons with the offense this week.
I was, like, a little bit disappointed with some red zone play calls, honestly, last week. I just thought they were, like, I guess not bad, but just dry. And so, like, I want to see a silly special.
It felt like a conservative game plan. It felt like a conservative kind of –
yeah.
Because it kind of felt like he was like, get points any way we can get them.
I agree. I think there could be some fun stuff.
I mean, he even said this week that in the playoffs he's more inclined to gamble on fourth down.
Yeah, I mean, like they lined up for it on the first drive, I think, on like 4th and 6. They're like, nah, I guess we'll punt. But I'm sure he was thinking about it because against the Chargers, like I think on their first scoring drive, they went for it on 4th and 6 or had 2 fourth down conversions. So that's kind of something to watch for sure.
That quarterback sneak Trevor did get on 4th down or 3rd down, that was not a first down. All the good karma from earlier in this year of them just getting shafted on spots came.
I was going to say, funny that you say karma because I was thinking like I don't really know if like the strip sack at the very end was a strip sack or an incompletion. So maybe that was a little bit of karma.
The Rayshawn one?
For in the playoffs.
The Rayshawn play?
Yeah, Rayshawn.
Oh, that was a fumble.
You thought?
Yeah. The ball was coming out before his hands started going forward. And then, like, obviously his body and Rayshawn's body helped propel it. But the ball was already coming out, at least in my opinion, before. And the opinion of the National Football League, let me add, before it, who have never been wrong in an NFL call.
Not enough evidence to overturn for sure.
I just want to say it was hilarious how quickly the NFL was like, okay, go. That was a play that you could have justified like spending like 10 minutes on. Yeah. And they were like, no, get the hell out of here.
Like the Jags field goal unit was trotting on. I was telling my buddy, I was like, what? Like, did it actually get approved? I like couldn't really believe my eyes.
When it happened, I tweeted, I was like, Jaguars retook the lead, I think. I had no idea. It was cool to see the refs actually let it play out.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So moving on, I guess, to just kind of closing wrap. DeAndre Hopkins. Is it happening, John?
There's no reason for me to like say like, okay, like I think obviously you need to break it down into a few things. The entire reason people have been talking DeAndre Hopkins is, an Arizona radio host yesterday. I probably should have already had this pulled up. I'm going to pull it up right now while I riff. But an Arizona radio host yesterday said, more or less that Hopkins, from what he was hearing, had, 2 preferred destinations before he, and he has a no trade clause before he enters into any kind of trade agreement. And it was Dave Burns and John Gambardo on the Burns and Gambo show in Arizona. And Gambardo said, here's the quote, he said, I've been told several times over the course of the last 5 or 6 weeks that it's very possible he's going to ask out, that he's not happy, that he's going to want to go somewhere else, Gambardo said. I've even heard today from people very close to the situation that, the preferences for him would be the Jaguars and the Chargers, the Jags, because he could be with Lawrence and Peterson, could be his best shot at a title to go with one of those teams. the problem is each guy has a highly paid receiver. The Jags have Kirk, and the Chargers have Mike Williams, etc. It's just a preference I've heard from people close to Hopkins that that's two teams he would like to go to, but we got to see how it plays out. So nowhere in that does it say, the Jacksonville Jaguars, are moving, Gibraltar to get to Deion. Yeah, it has nothing to do with the Jaguars having interest. It's just if you're DeAndre Hopkins and you're looking at teams you want to join, like Tyreek last year when he requested a trade, playing for Trevor Lawrence and playing with Trevor Lawrence and for Doug Peterson, playing with Justin Herbert, those are two places I'd want to go to if I was a receiver, especially, going to a team in the AFC if you want to be a ring chaser is a bit risky because the AFC is insane right now with, Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, Herbert, Lawrence, etc. But I think if you're a receiver, it makes a ton of sense. I don't think the Jaguars, I didn't think it was in Trent Baalke's blood to do the his DNA to do the Calvin Ridley trade, and he proved me wrong, and I since applaud him for it. I think it's the best move he's made. I think it's one of the most creative trades the team has made in the last couple of years, and it's hilarious to me that Trent Baalke, ultimate football guy, is the one who kind of orchestrated it, and he did. But I don't think moving money around for Hopkins when you already have money committed to Kirk, to Ridley for at least next year, to Zay Jones for at least next year, when you already have that much money at receiver, and then that's not even talking about Agnew, who I think we making like $5 million to be their number 4 receiver and return man next year. So, does it make sense? No. But the Jaguars should be absolutely flattered. This is the first time in franchise history, blue chip players and veteran, all pros who are entering that next stage of their career who just want a ring. When have they ever wanted to play for the Jaguars? Right. Literally never.
I was going to say, I don't think ever. That's definitely the biggest win. As much fun it is to kind of daydream about Kirk and Ridley and Hopkins and Etienne and Ingram, for that matter, catching balls from Trevor Lawrence in the future. It's pretty unrealistic, but the fact
Etienne wouldn't be catching any passes in that offense, my friend. He'd see 10 targets all year in that offense.
Yeah, he got two. He actually had a design target in this game for the first time in a while. It was, I think it was mostly because of the linebacker he was up against, but it was clear he was running an option route that Trevor was looking for. So I guess that was cool.
People are going to ask it his whole career, and why they don't throw it to him more. And it's just this offense, just they don't want to throw it to the running back.
Yeah,
let me ask you this: would you rather have, if you could financially make it work, DeAndre Hopkins on the Jaguars next year, or Evan Ingram, Arden Key, and Jawan Taylor on the Jaguars next year? I'm not gonna enter the Jamal Agnew and DeAndre Hopkins discourse because I'm a man of what.
Yeah, we don't need to go around that. You said Ingram and Key, and who else?
Jawan.
I'd rather have Nuke.
Yeah,
but that's that's an irresponsible. I don't even think that's correct.
I think so too. I think so. It's DeAndre Hopkins, dude. And people keep saying.
I was just gonna say he's the one thing I was thinking about in the back of my head this whole time is that he's 30 and he's getting up there, even if contract isn't really an issue. So to kind of devote a lot of resources to an aging guy is but at the same time, Trevor's on his rookie contract. It's kind of the window to go get guys, even if they are a little bit older. But the reason I was interrupting you is that actually thinking about it, he's still been pretty good. It's not he's falling off the cliff at all. He's still DeAndre Hopkins.
Would you trade Andre Sisco in a second round pick for DeAndre Hopkins?
No.
Really?
Because
I do that in my sleep.
I don't think the Jaguars can win a Super Bowl with their current defense the way the secondary is. So when you take away their only formidable safety and coverage, that's just I think that's too big of a hole. And then you screw yourself by giving away a second rounder. If it was Rayshawn in a second, then I would say yes, honestly.
Devin Lloyd in a second.
Oh, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna start buying low on Devin Lloyd this summer probably.
Okay. I think I've been too hard on him.
That he's salvable.
I think I've been too hard on him.
One thing I put into a group chat today was Josh Allen for Nuke. Just like if
My,
like
my
Allen is
only
on
thing,
like an ending contract, and like if kind of teams are like get the sense that he's not going to re-sign with Jacksonville,
yeah.
expiring guy for an expiring guy, maybe.
My only thing is, where's the pass rush come from if you trade Josh Allen?
Draft pick.
Better hope the high God you hit.
That's fair.
But then again, teams are normally that egomaniac to where they're like, yeah, we're like, it could be a 6-round pick won't hit. Like
Right.
that's true. Yeah, no. So I think Nuke, dude. My entire thing with Nuke is that he's getting old, but he's had an old man game since he was a rookie. Like he has a game that should age wonderfully, and I think with Trevor Lawrence specifically, like I think they'd be like perfect for each other. So
That's exactly what I was gonna say. And like they already kind of have two route runners in Kirk and Ridley. Kirk, by the way, I thought was like ridiculously good at route running against the Titans. I thought
he had a great game.
So those, like you kind of have like the same mold of receiver, and so Nuke would just like honestly, okay, you get Nuke because he solves your red zone problems. You put him on one side, and then you throw it to him every time it's single coverage, or safety comes to help, and then Doug will be able to scheme up anything else on the other side. So now that I'm thinking of it, like he's a perfect receiver for Trevor, but like they're already so good between the 20s as they were against the Titans. But like if you can get a guy to like solve an issue that's turning 3 points to 7 every other drive, then yeah, you go get that. So I'm back. And second and Cisco, I would do that.
What if you could get him for 2/3, but you got to pay his contract for the next 2 years?
Yeah, I'm not like super worried about the contract just because like I don't really know what it looks like yet. Like
There's always money in banana stand.
yeah, like they could like give extra compensation to the Cardinals for them to like eat salary a little bit if the Cardinals are going to do like a mini rebuild. I mean, they could like turn it into a signing bonus, turn other contracts into signing bonus, prorate, push it back, like extend so that like the money gets pushed back. That would probably make the most sense, honestly. But like the Jaguars, even though they're kind of in cap hell right now, like so many of their contracts are just basically like withouts after 2 or 3 years. So
And they're going to shed a ton in March. Just realistically, they're going to shed a couple noticeable ones in March.
any like you feel like naming now?
Like Shaq.
Oh well, yeah. I was more curious in like anyone but Shaq, I guess, because like Roy Orbison,
Agnew.
Rayshawn are both like expensive, but like
I think Agnew.
important. True. He's
Agnew, Roy.
as good as Agnew is. He's getting paid too much for his role.
Yeah. Roy.
Yeah. Okay. Let's wrap it up with playoff predictions. We're both predicting the Jags to beat the Chargers in this wild card round at the bank. How far do we think the Jags are going to go, though? Assuming they win this week, they would then.
Their entire like playoff path, like it's like get past Herbert, and then you have to get past a combination of like Mahomes or Allen and Burrow.
Right.
Like you have to play 2 of those 3. So
it's like one of the hardest playoff like roads like in the last decade or two, probably, if we're thinking about it like, quarterback leading wise.
Yeah, so I think divisional round. I think they're going to draw. Like, there's no way Cincinnati and Buffalo don't win in the wild card. They're playing backup quarterbacks who, frankly, shouldn't even like be starting playoff games. Like that's a serious issue. That
should barely be rostered.
Yeah, so I mean, if Teddy Bridgewater plays, I mean, it's Teddy Bridgewater. So the Bills and Bengals are going to win; they're going to advance. If the Jaguars win, they play Kansas City in the second round. Looking back on the Kansas City Jaguars game is interesting because like the Jaguars forced a couple of turnovers, and they only lost by 10, and they missed 2 field goals, and they had 1 touchdown negated that they had to kick the field goal on, and that's 10 points, Gus. So like that was a game they should have been in, but Mahomes in the playoffs against the Jaguars defense. I can't do it.
No, they would put up 50 points. Like this Jags defense is like, I hate to say it, but like asking to like have another like Dallas or Detroit game. I think so. Like Mahomes at Arrowhead in the playoffs, as you said. Like, yeah, it would be bad.
Yeah,
I don't
and
know.
and
Game. Go ahead.
and then if you beat him, like we said, then you got to play Burrow or Allen. And
Yeah,
I don't know if I buy enough stock in their defense to go and win those games yet.
I agree.
I don't know if their offense can go toe to toe with those offenses yet. I think the offense is still in an early stage of its maturation in the Doug Peterson kind of plan.
I was just gonna say in the Chiefs game, like they were driving on their first one, and then had Isaiah Pacheco fumble like in the red zone.
Yeah.
And then like they were just targeting Devin Lloyd the entire game, from what I remember. And like if like watching the film back, it felt like they could have scored like 80 points. And
yeah, like the way I see the Jaguars in the playoffs is like, to me, normally the teams with either the best head coaches or the best quarterbacks win the playoffs. And to me, I would rank Trevor as the 5th best AFC quarterback in the playoffs right now. I think I would go Mahomes, Allen, or Burrow, however you want to rank them. Herbert than Trevor. You can probably debate Trevor and Herbert. I'd probably still give Herbert the slight edge. I mean, he has more game experience too. So, I mean, what do you think?
Like, my list would be Herbert, Teardrop, Burrow, Allen, Herbert, or Herbert, Allen, Burrow, Teardrop, Lawrence.
Patrick Mahomes retired?
So what? Okay, Mahomes is at the top. Teardrop, Herbert, Burrow, Allen, Teardrop, Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
Wow, I had to talk really slowly there.
Teardrop. That killed me. Yeah. So and that's the thing with the Jaguars is, okay, so your entire hope for, going forward in the playoffs is being quarterback driven because the defense is what it is. But you also have, it's not an insult to Lawrence because in the NFC he'd be one of like the 2 or 3 best quarterbacks, but it's just the AFC's insanely loaded and he's a second-year quarterback. I mean, I think he's going to be going into next year's playoffs. I think he's going to be higher up there in number 5. I mean, AFC is loaded.
AFC is loaded. I really hope Lamar gets a ton of money in the NFC. That'd be cool.
We want him to go to the Falcons, right?
Oh, that'd be pretty sweet. Lions
have let me down. I think they're going to go back to the whole golf thing.
I'm curious if they're gonna like try to get like Carr or like some like Tannehill, like a mediocre quarterback that's not really gonna do anything more.
Okay, let's look at. Okay, Philadelphia won't be in the quarterback market. Neither will Dallas. The Giants, I think they have to bring back Daniel Jones now. I don't want Lamar to go to Washington. Dear God.
No.
Yeah, Detroit. Yeah, Carolina.
Oh.
New Orleans.
Oh, Carolina should just like do what the Broncos tried to do with Nate Hackett and Aaron Rodgers, and they should just get like whoever like Lamar would want as his head coach.
Greg Roman.
No, like just whatever the opposite. Not Greg Roman. Greg Roman can be like the run game designer, maybe. That'd be like
hear me out.
Highest access, but
Brady goes to Vegas. Tampa Bay trades for Lamar.
I don't like that. I feel like Tampa Bay is like, I mean, they've got like Wirfs and the safety, Winfield, and like some other young players, but like I feel like they're so old also.
Yeah.
I feel like they're kind of like, I feel like they're about to go do a rebuild once they trade Brady.
Does Lamar play another snap as a Raven?
Doesn't feel like it.
I don't think he does. I think he's out of there. I have no sourcing on this whatsoever. Obviously, I don't cover the freaking Baltimore Ravens, but it just, you get the feeling that he's like done.
He hasn't practiced in 38 days. My jaw dropped when I saw that today. That's wild. For like, and like the updates from Harbaugh are getting like more and more vague somehow. Even if we get as we get closer and closer to the playoffs. So
it's like a Jim Harbaugh. It's like Jim Harbaugh answers at that point. Once you get to that level of vague, it's over.
All right, playoff predictions before we get out of here. I had Chiefs Niners before the season, so I'm going to stick with that. Even though I'm gonna go Chiefs over Eagles. I know it's a chalk one, but I think the Eagles roster is like too stacked. I just don't think I don't know if I can trust their defense of like coaching yet or
Defense.
offense.
It's I don't know if I can trust like Jalen Hurts like against a like really good defense. I think Eagles 49ers should be like the dream championship game.
Yeah, definitely. The Eagles like deserve to be the 1 seed, but it's like
We can't have Brock Purdy
they
win a
deserve to
Super
be in
Bowl,
the Super
guys.
Bowl. I'm gonna place a bet on the Bills though. I think they might be a team of destiny. I feel like a lot of times, like Red Sox after the Boston bombing, or the Saints after Katrina. There was the Astros, I think, the Astros after some Houston hurricane. I think. I don't know. Sports teams win after like crap happens. So
No,
I kind of feel like the storyline could happen.
I don't think the Bills are going to necessarily win because of the Boston bomber, but you said it, not me. No, I could see the Bills doing it. I mean that first touchdown return was electric. The second one had me like, okay, Roger.
I was like, yeah, exactly. So like that's my point though. That's why they're winning.
Fair enough.
I don't know if they want to bring any more light to it though at the same time, so maybe they'll get bounced first round.
The most Buffalo Bills thing ever is for them to dominate the Bengals in the divisional round, have a ton of hype, go into Kansas City, and then just get their hearts completely stomped on with metal cleats.
Yeah. It's like they're a weird team now.
The Bills in playoff success, I've never seen it in my life.
Right. That's the thing is like I feel like we've been talking about them as like Super Bowl serious contenders for a couple years now, and it's just like have they really even gotten close?
It'd be cool to see Josh Allen in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I would like to see it. It's just that like it hasn't happened.
My final hot take about the playoffs before we go.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're ranking like coolness of like teams that go to the Super Bowl, like Mahomes and Allen are 1 and 2. Like it'd be cool to see the Bills in the Super Bowl. I don't want to see Brock Purdy, and I don't want to see him in the Super Bowl. I don't want to see him win the Super Bowl. The discourse, Gus. We can't do the discourse.
Not enough swagger for you, John?
Dude, we can't do the discourse.
I mean, we're already like
no. I had somebody tweet. I tweeted out like my like rookie of the year stuff, and somebody said Brock Purdy.
Oh no!
He played 5 games.
You don't give an award to someone who's played 5 games or whatever it's been.
I made it through the Nick Mullins discourse. I made it. I made it through so many past battles, Gus. But I can't do the Brock Purdy stuff. I can't do it.
All right. Well, I kind of hope to see the Vikings like advance far. I think it'd be like funny if they like just kept winning close games and just like never stopped and just like made like people pull their hair out. So I'm kind of rooting for that. But
it'd be funny if they went to the Super Bowl and then like lost in like TCU style.
That would be good.
That might be my new favorite outcome for the playoffs. Okay, yeah. Okay. I got a new favorite. Okay.
Purple championship team. Get smoked. All right, John. Well, it's been episode 28, I think.
Yes, it has.
We'll hopefully be live next week. We had some technical difficulties before the pod today. Just couldn't really figure. You know, podding is difficult. It's not as easy as they say. Not everyone can do it. It's real work, you know.
If you had to place a Gus bet on if we go live next week or not, you doing it or no?
Yes.
I'm full.
Yeah, I'll dedicate myself to the podcast. Yeah, we'll go live this next week.
Okay, I bet
for the 29th episode of the Jaguar Report podcast. That's John. I'm Gus. We'll see ya.